We are back with another episode of Mock Draft Mondays, and today Matt is in the hot seat with the 10th pick on today's action-packed episode of Locked On Fantasy Baseball.
You are Locked On Fantasy Baseball, your daily fantasy baseball podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, fantasy baseball fanatics, and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, we're your number one source of fantasy baseball knowledge, and thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. I'm your host, Dominic Marchino. You can find me on Twitter at DomMartinoFB. Here, as always, with my brother, my co-host, my partner in crime, Matthew Onne, and you can find him on Twitter at Matthew_Onne. If you're watching on YouTube and you haven't already, hit that little bell below. It will subscribe you to the channel and give you a notification every time we drop a new episode. Or if you're listening on the audio side of things on a platform like Apple or Spotify that allows 5-star ratings and reviews, we would truly appreciate it if you could do that for us. And lastly, and most importantly to you guys and Matt and I this time of year, give us a chance on the Subtext platform. Through Subtext, it's an in-depth personalized experience where you're going to get text message alerts right to your phone, offering so much more than we can in these 30-minute episodes. And this time of year, you're going to get that competitive edge over your fantasy league mates on Subtext with our 2025 rankings, sleepers, breakouts, bust, and so much more. So if you are interested in joining us on Subtext, the link to join is in our bio wherever you're listening, watching, or if it's available on any of our social media platforms. And right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet with FanDuel, the official partner of the NBA. And all right, Matt, set it up top. You're back in the hot seat today with our, mock draft Monday routine. You took the end of the draft here, standard 5x5 head-to-head category league, right? That's what we did this time around. And kind of back to, Matt and I specialize in. And Matt, why don't you get into it? Give us a little breakdown of your team here.
Yeah, sure. I got to pull it up real quick. Yeah, so, I drafted out of the 10 hole and, I was like, all right, cool. This is going to be interesting. It's not the last pick, but I still kind of got to follow the same rules, right? Like I got to pick the guys I want because I pretty much have 20 some odd picks before I pick again. And that's going to be rough, but at least I get like a short little double tap. And I did a couple interesting moves here and things I didn't do that were characteristic to how I normally draft. But I think you're going to like it, Dom. I think the fans are going to like it. I'll get into it. So let me just,
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll pull up the show here. Like this is my team out here if you're watching on the tubes. But pretty much I'll break it down round by round. I started off with Fernando Tatis out of the 10th hole, swung around, and actually Yordan Alvarez was sitting there really pretty, and that was nice. In the third, I actually grabbed Austin Riley, and I was like, sweet, I'm rocking and rolling. I got two stellar outfielders, both in my top 10 at the position, and then I got my number 3 third baseman. I'm coasting right now. Then I did something different. Usually I wait like 4 or 5 rounds to go and get a pitcher, but I saw Cole Ragans was sitting there at great value, and I was like, bet. So I picked up Cole Ragans, and I was like, all right, now I can sit back a little bit. As the draft went on, then I saw, okay, my next pick was Teoscar Hernandez in the 5th, and I was like, sweet. Then, I was like, I go to my next pick, and I'm like, I got to really start looking at team construction, start filling things out. And I saw that Luis Castillo was sitting there. And I was like, all right, cool. I need an SP2. Let me grab him. And I'm like, you know what? I think I got this. And then I picked I think I said Teoscar Hernandez at this point. And I can't believe he was sitting so late. And I was like, all right, cool. So now I got 3 stellar outfielders. I got a third baseman in Austin Riley. I got 2 awesome SP1s who are also in my top 12 at the position. And I'm like, all right, we're going to keep going. I started getting my pitching going now, and I did some double tapping, funny enough. So I went Tyler Glasnow and Tanner Bibee back to back, which was something out of the characteristics. But I saw that, okay, I was keeping track of my positions I needed. I needed a first baseman, a second baseman, and a shortstop. And all the shortstops and second basemen that you would qualify as like, higher tiers, right? In my first like 3 or 4 tiers are gone. So I'm like, all right, well, let me just keep an eye on my targets, right? My whole targets the whole time was Nico Hoerner, Ezequiel Tovar, and Vinnie Pasquantino. And those are the guys I ended up with. And I got them a lot later. So I was able to kind of capitalize on the earlier pitching at that point because my targets were already were going to be much later in the draft. Everybody kind of picked at the top. So when everybody's bobbing, I'm weaving, and it kind of worked out because my pitching staff I think came out really well. So as it stands right now, I got Cole Ragans, Luis Castillo as my 1 and 2 punch. Then I got Tyler Glasnow as my 3, and Tanner Bibee as my 4. And I'm like, bet I got 4 top 24 pitchers based off of my rankings. I'm really happy by that. My pitching is stacked. So then I start looking. Okay, I then triple tapped at the position, but I didn't go SP. I went RP and I picked up Durant. And I'm like, cool. So now I'm like, all right, I really need to fill out my infield. I got Vinnie Pasquantino, then I got Tovar, then I swung back around, and then I got Jordan Romano. And then I'm like, all right, I have one opportunity to go and do this. I need to go get a second baseman. Nico Horner is getting literally buried. He was like the 14th, second baseman slash short off the board, and I scooped him up. I'm like, awesome. All my bats are covered. Then I'm like, all right, I'm going to get Tyler O'Neill. And then I rolled back in the pitching and I got Spencer Allegretti. And I'm like, bet. You can't really get mad at this. So Allegretti is my 5th pitcher. Then I picked up Josh Young, another UT bat. And then I picked up Ronald Blanco, who is one of my like dark horse picks slash this year. Everybody seems to not believe in him. Dom is one of them. You'll probably hear him rip me apart for drafting him. But Ronald Blanco honestly had a good year, finished with a sub 3. He leans on his fastball and what was the other one that he leans on? I'm doing this off memory, but I have it. He leans on 2 pitches mainly. He throws 38% on the fastball, and he throws apologize, a slider. Yeah,
Slider.
slider at 30% of the time. And last year, the batting average on there was the four-seam fastball was 232, and the slider was a 180, but the X batting average was sitting at 269 and 230 for the 2 pitches. So even if that goes up, right, where there's 2 dominant pitches, that'll bring him into the low 3s versus the sub 3 area of 280. I'm not mad at that. Plus, the rest of his pitches were pretty nice when he slid in the change ball and curveball, really didn't get hit. And he was able to mix those up pretty well. So I'm excited to see what he's going to do in year 2. They're going to have to lean on him. I just hope we don't have like a Christian Javier situation where he ends up being a bust. But him being my SP6, I'm not really mad at it. Plus, I drafted guys that I feel will be able to step into the role. So we'll get into that. So after I draft Blanco, I picked up Kerry Carpenter and CES, which is Christian Encarnacion Strand from the Reds. And I feel like, okay, cool. I got my first my bench OF, which you need to have a bunch of outfielders since you have 3 positions you have to fill. So I always like to carry 2 on my bench, which I do at some point. Then I picked up Jeffrey Springs for the upside. I'm a big fan of him. This podcast is a big fan of him. We're hoping that he can kind of, show what we saw in the little bright spots when he did return from injury. And then, unfortunately he did go back down, but he still was stellar in those, that short little stint that he was out there last year. Let's just hope that this year's the year he stays healthy and really takes off. And then I went in and I scooped up Evan Carter, who we talked about in the outfield episode the other day. I have him in my top 36, and I'm a big fan of him. For me to get a top 36 in my rankings, not by ADP, outfielder, I feel is a steal. So that's why I kind of hopped all over it. The value is absolutely incredible. He's going around like pick 200, and I have him a little bit higher. Actually, is my outfield 27. So I feel like I'm doing really well. Any of my guys go down, I have Kerry Carpenter and Evan Carter to kind of make up. There is those worlds and those possibilities where, Yordan Alvarez hasn't always been a picture of health. Fernando Tatis likes to take a couple weeks off. Maybe he likes to go and ride quads and somewhere. Who knows? But it's his thing. And then Domini's, 5 bench last pick kind of, sweetheart that I don't think has not been in a mock draft episode once. Jesus Luzardo is my last pitcher. And
Yeah, I think that's accurate. I think he's been in every mock draft episode for sure.
Honestly, I kind of want to like DM him and be like, yo, like you want to come on the show during our mock draft. So like when we announce you again, you can just poke your head up. That'd be really funny. But like Jesus Luzardo, I mean, like, I have a few minutes. Like I want to talk about why Luzardo kind of always seems to be our guy. And, yeah, he didn't have the most wonderful season last year, and also he didn't play much. But you go back to 23 and you look at what he did, right? Like he picked all 32 games. He pitched 178 innings. He had 208 strikeouts. He had an ERA of 3.58 and a 121 WHIP. Yes, the WHIP is a little high, but he was also one of the top pitching prospects in baseball a couple years ago, and he's still only 27 years old. So there's time to grow, and I feel like the Phillies are actually a great landing spot. They're deep. They're not going to have to lean on him. The pressure's kind of off. He's also on a team that also wants to win. So versus being on on his previous team will kind of take that off of his back, right? And let's compete and let's have some fun. So in 2023, when he did have that good year, he was rocking and rolling. He had a 96.7 mile per hour fastball. He got guys to chase 31% of the time, created a whiff at 31.4% of the time, struck out guys literally 28% of the time, and really only walked guys at 7.5%. Yes, he allowed guys to barrel. He allowed a little bit of hard contact. He didn't create a lot of ground balls, and that may play bad in Philly. But at the same time, maybe they can make some corrections on him and whatnot. But you know what? Before I move on, I finish up my final thoughts on my team. I do have to, hand this off and leave you with a little tease, and you'll find out more on the other side of this and watch Dom rip me apart.
And all right, folks, when the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in on the. If you're looking for an even bigger payout, you can combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I personally love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting, whether I'm backing my team for a late-game rally or picking up a player to hit a clutch three. I never feel like I missed my chance. Plus, the app is super easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. And all right, guys, last couple times we've talked about this. I told you to bet on Wemby. Unfortunately, literally right after we finished recording last time, Wemby went down for the year, got a blood clot in the shoulder. We wish him well, but I have a new guy for you to bet on. Go with Evan Mobley, and honestly, the Cavs are having a great year right now. So I'm talking points, rebounds, blocks, threes. Evan Mobley, I'm taking the over on everything. So right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And then once again, I need to talk to you guys about the Locked On Fantasy Baseball Podcast Diamond Club on the Subtext platform. As this offseason continues to unfold, it's going to be literally your Bible, as you're getting ready for your drafts and even on draft day, because we have our 2025 rankings, sleepers, breakouts, bust, and you can even ask us questions through Subtext personally. So you're going to want to make sure you get over there to get all of that and more when you join the Diamond Club on the Subtext platform, whether your path to victories begins. Subscribe now. Matt and I are going to elevate your fantasy baseball experience to a new level. So the link is in the bio wherever you're listening, watching, and it's available on any of our social media platforms. All right, Matt, some final thoughts here on your team.
All right, so my final thoughts are I actually kind of nailed the draft. I'm not going to say I'm going to give myself an A+, but I think I'm going to give myself an A-. I feel that my team is, one, very well balanced. I have a phenomenal pitching staff, and my bats are going to be really tough to get by. I have steals, I have home runs out the wazoo, and you're going to have a hard time competing with me week in and week out. And Sean Murphy, I think, is my dark horse of the whole team at catcher, which I didn't read off because his upside is actually unreal. He's going to get everyday play, which means that, if he can get 400 at bats, I think the power plays, the lineup is going to be nice. And even if he's hitting at the bottom of the lineup, he's going to have guys at the top of the lineup driving him home. Sean Murphy's going to be a sneaky little pick this year. I'm really a big fan of him. He's who we pretty much another guy like Jesus Luzardo, who I don't think has only missed about 2 episodes. And that's when Dom wants to go Ivan Herrera. So other than that, it's just those two at the catcher position for us this year. So who our favorites are. But ultimately, this is the team that okay, look, I've done about this is mock draft number 7 right now. This is where we start becoming a well-oiled machine. We're starting to see where the ADP is. I'm starting to able to play the ADP game. It's the importance of this exercise, and you're starting to see what's coming from the hard work. So keep doing it like we do, at least once a week, if not a couple times a week, and you will start knowing where you want to grab your targets and how you want to construct your team based off all the players that start coming up. But yeah, Dom, I'm going to hand it over to you. Don't be gentle. I really don't feel like you're going to be able to really pick me apart too bad. So if anything, if for some off chance, maybe we can just talk about how much we like my team and how you're going to be scared of me in fantasy baseball this year.
We'll start off with, because honestly, we'll say this: it is a good team. I will get into some parts that I think could use a little bit of improvement, but overall, it's definitely a solid team. And because I don't want to mislead the fans and the listeners, because this is kind of a good example of, hey, 5x5 head-to-head category, 12-man league redraft. This is a very strong team going into that type of setting, right? The outfield do love it. An outfield like this is so strong, and it's going to be very hard to combat this outfield of Fernando Tatis Jr., Yordan Alvarez, and Teoscar Hernandez, because I don't really think there's any question marks there. Maybe a little bit of health question marks, but you back the outfield up great, so you don't really have to worry about that at all. Your infield also awesome. I love Pasquantino. Pasquantino's, we've been talking about Pasquantino for literally since we've started this podcast last 3 years. He's the man. Love him. If he could stay healthy, he's gonna have a breakout year. Austin Riley just needs to stay healthy. Tovar, great year last year. Somebody that Matt and I have been slowly moving up our rankings because we think Tovar is gonna have another strong year this year. Horner, I love Horner. Here's where I'll start to kind of get into where I think he could have maybe done things a little bit differently. Thing with Horner, he's going into spring training a little bit banged up. He had the shoulder surgery in October. So I just would have, I think he's going to be healthy for opening day from everything I've seen. I just would have loved some backup here, some backup to Nico Horner, maybe getting instead of going maybe Tyler O'Neill, because you got the Kerry Carpenter and Evan Carter later, maybe there, and I know you hate him, and I'm just going to say his name anyway, Luis Garcia Jr., somebody like that, at the utility
I don't hate
spot.
Garcia.
Yeah, just somebody like that at the utility spot, because then you know what? He jumps in there and he covers second and short, in case something goes wrong with Tovar too. Just kind of makes your team a little bit more balanced. I do love Tyler O'Neill. I think he's going to have a huge year. No problem with him there. But I also think you had a lot of power at that point already between Yordan and Teoscar and Riley and the Pasquatch, that you don't necessarily need more power. And hey, you know what? Tatis could steal a little bit. Horner could steal a little bit. Other than that, I mean, Tovar has the speed. He didn't really steal a lot last year. You could take a guy like Luis Garcia Jr., throw him into this lineup. His 20 steals is going to be invaluable, in my opinion, because not that you necessarily are super lacking in speed, but if there's an area where you could use a little bit of boost, could probably use a little bit of more speed there too. So I think Luis Garcia might have been a better lean than a Tyler O'Neill, or even jump in a little bit earlier at the utility spot instead of where Josh Young goes, maybe jump it around or two and jump him in there. But I still, like I said, I like the build of this team. The hitting is good. And then even your bench hitting is great with Kerry Carpenter, Strand, and Carter, all young guys with upside. I think Kerry Carpenter is going to have a monster year in Detroit. Strand, same thing in Cincinnati, though, as long as he can stay in the field. Same thing with Carter in Texas. As we move over to the pitching staff, I think you nailed it here too. I think this is the way you do the pitching staff. You get your ace up top with Cole Ragans, Luis Castillo, somebody I've been moving up in my rankings too. I literally was reworking my rankings yesterday because we have our starting pitcher rankings review coming up. Make sure you look out for those episodes coming next week. This week actually, as you guys are listening to this. Castillo, I have him at SP14, so I love him as your SP2. Glasnow as a 3 is amazing. Bibee as a 4 is great. And then I like Arrighetti. Arrighetti's really good. I think he's gonna have a breakout year as a 5. A little bit risky, but still like it. And then I don't like Blanco, so we're not gonna get too much into that. But that's where we throw our darts. You could take whoever you want at that point. You really just that's very good at pitching too. So he likes Blanco. I think that's a fine pick at that point in the draft. And then Springs, again at that point in the draft, I'm totally fine with it. Jeffrey Springs has the elite talent coming back from a tough injury. He is headed over to a new team on those Athletics, who are going to play in the smaller parks, but I don't necessarily love that for Springs. But you know what? Like I said, at the end of the draft, you throw your darts at the guys you like. Luzardo, I think he winds up being your SP5, if you ask me. I think Luzardo's just going to have a monster year. Matt, you kind of spoke about it. It was great with this time in Miami and Oakland back when the Athletics were over there. Luzardo was always good. Has the talent, just has to stay healthy. He's been injury prone his whole career. We'll see. And then at Sean Murphy at catcher, I draft him all the time. Your closers. I like Duran as the 1. He's great. Romano as a 2 is amazing. I always like to say mix in 3 closers where you can, but the team build here is fine. I'm not mad at that. Maybe you mix out a Springs or a Blanco for a closer if I had to get nitpicky. I really do like your grade though, Matt, of the team. I like the A- grade. I think that's where I'm going here too. maybe a high B++ if I have to get nitpicky. But no, it's a really good team. This is the way that you do it. And then you just make the little tweaks you need here and there, But with that being said, before I give Matt a chance to jump back in and rebuttal, we are going to take a quick break, but make sure you stay locked on for the second and final half of this episode. All right, Matt. Any more thoughts here on this team? Any thoughts on what I had to say on your team or anything like that?
So sorry, I hit the wrong button. There we go. So straight up, it's a fair assessment. Yeah, I was staring down Garcia. The thing about when I wanted Garcia actually has moved up in ADP. At least on Draft Wizard, where I was doing the ranking, he was going up. He went 5 rounds earlier than Nico Horner.
I gotta stop hyping him up.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Everybody is, though. And I mean, I understand, there is hype. Like, the kid has upside. And I was staring down him in the barrel, but I'm like, okay, it was literally the difference of, okay, do I round out my pitching, or do I get a guy with some upside where I can still go and get a Nico Horner later in the draft and kind of cover some other stuff? And yeah, even though he's injured, if he misses even the first month of this season, the price I got him at, I'll hold him on the IL. I'll throw some random second baseman in, and it won't really hurt me.
Wait, Matt, I have it. You know who you
Mhm.
should have taken at the end of the draft?
Who?
Luis Rengifo.
Oh, the queef. Ew. I mean, but to be honest, though, he's probably not being drafted in a lot of leagues, or he'll be on the waiver wires really quick because he's going to be an expendable player. And, based off of needs, he could be somebody I could just pick up off waivers. So I don't really mind picking him up. He's a little, Swiss Army knife. And why not? But, that's only if Nico Horner isn't healthy for opening day, which, again, everything.
Yeah, all reports are saying that he
Mhm.
should be ready for opening day, but, we'll see.
Yeah. So, I mean, at this point, he's a fair point. And, to be honest, yeah, I'm kind of banking on him for stolen bases. But, we forget that Fernando Tatis still has that upside of stealing a whole lot of bases. Teoscar Hernandez is going to chip in 20. And then and then Tovar. Tovar has the ability to do it. I think that if they just give him the green light, which they might this year, we're going to have a lot of fun with this team in terms of speed. If not, I'm going to beat you out in power. You're not going to keep up with me in runs, home runs, or ribs. I don't think a lot of teams are going to be playing catch up to me. So I think I solidified those. I'm able to compete in stolen bases. Saves between my two closers are going to be, the key point. I'm going to walk away with stolen bases or saves in a single week. I'm not going to lose both, and that's going to be the difference maker with walking away with runs, home runs, ribbies, and I would even say average. I have a pretty good team for average, and that's going to be the real difference maker. And to be honest, the way my team is structured, you're not beating me out in Ks. Wins are going to be plethora on this team. So have fun. I might see some high ERA weeks, but again, the counting stats are just going to be so overwhelming on this that it's just going to be a team that's going to be really hard to beat. That's why I gave myself the A-. I feel like even if I do fail in some, yeah, and if I do fall behind in the niche kind of categories such as saves and stolen bases, you know, I'm such a leader in the other ones that you're going to have a guy put up 4 home runs in a single week for you just to stay competitive.
Yeah, man, I'll even chime in and say this, and I think this is a key thing, and I think this is a great way to express it. It's about building a core, and I just love the core on this team. When you look at a core of a Yordan, Tatis, Teoscar, Austin Riley for your hitting, I love that. That's a solid 4 guys that, and you could say injuries about almost anybody in the league, right? There's hardly anybody that you look at and you say, yes, he is the picture of health. But that's a great core to start off with, right? Then you throw in the upside of a Tovar, a Pasquantino, all your young hitters on the bench, right? Great. Then look at the hitting. Look at the pitching. Ragans, Castillo, Glasnow, Bibee. Another 4. When you see 4 bats, 4 arms like that as a core, that's when you're doing something right, because then you could just kind of build around those guys, right? Even if some of the guys around them necessarily don't work out, you play the waiver wire the right way. You get the right guys to replace them. You make sure you're looking for the breakouts. You stay on the subtext where Matt and I are telling you when these prospects are getting called up. Stay locked on with us there, and that's the recipe of winning. Now, when sometimes you want to get a little bit too risky at the top of your drafts and you want to play the upside there. I think that's where, you start to get a little bit messy, but Matt nailed it here. It's perfect. You have 4 bats that are going to hold it down. You have 4 starting pitchers that are going to hold it down. You got Johan Duran, who's a certified closer. You got Romano, who Matt and I, love. I think he's going to get the job there in Philly done. So, you have 2 great closers. You have 4 starters, 4 bats, and that's the way you do it. And then you can kind of build the upside around them. You put the security blankets in there here and there, like, the Tyler O'Neill kind of fits that in this team. Sean Murphy is another kind of security blanket. When you look at the pitching, even though Jesus Luzardo's been banged up, he's a security blanket because when he's healthy, he's going to be good. And the fact that you're getting him so late, I just really do like the team construction here, and specifically even like the players that you put together. It just works, and if you follow this recipe, it's going to be successful.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and you know what too. Like the thing is, like we also put out like a watch list going into the season, which the week after drafts are done, we're waiting for opening day. Going up leading up to that Thursday. We usually put out a watch list, and it's guys that I probably know that weren't drafted that I'm targeting off waivers the second I see the movement that I think they're going to do. And it's just guys I was wanting to pull the trigger on that, okay, I can probably wait for, and I can probably pick them up pretty quickly. So you got to look out for that, because those are the guys in the first 3 weeks of baseball. That's usually when you get at least 1 to 2 pitchers that come out of nowhere or bounce back that everybody was kind of like fed up with and have scorch marks from previous poor fantasy seasons that finally do it. And you scoop them up, or the hot guy that rides it for the first month and a half that really thrusts you to first place, that kind of gives you that kind of, what do you call it? Cushion for if you deal with injuries at more of a key player that you can recover for. So they're the most important waiver wire weeks, the first 3 to 4 weeks, and you want to be on top of it. So starting that watch list going in, along with a team like this, can help make up for any of the injuries that you might possibly see. And anybody can get hurt. I can get hurt walking down the stairs. So it just happened after a few drinks. But it's one of those things where you just got to stay up on it. You don't win your league at the draft, but you damn sure can lose it. I definitely didn't lose it. If anything, I'm starting off the season pretty hot. And if I can walk away with a team like this, I'm having a really good season, because in the 12-man league, this is just bunkers.
Yeah, man, I'm just going to kind of chime in off of what you were saying before when you were talking about, playing the waiver wire right after, those first couple of weeks. You can't be afraid either. I think that's the biggest thing I see that hurts people, is they're afraid. They're so tied to the team that they drafted that they're saying, no, I want to stand pat. I get that. And you want to do that with the higher end guys, right? But I'm going to use Matt. I'm just using your team as an example. Not that I don't like any of these guys, but right. Let's say Jeffrey Springs. He has 2 really bad starts, and I'm not going to name any specific pitcher, but there's a pitcher on the waiver wire, and his first 2 starts were fantastic, and it's somebody that we've talked about. It's a name you heard of. Make the move. You put no draft capital into a guy like that. You know what the odds are? Hey, listen, I like Jeffrey Springs a lot. He's been hurt. He's not on a good team anymore. The wins aren't necessarily going to be there. And you know what? It's a smaller stadium. So you put those factors into that, and there's a guy on the waiver wire that say, hey, not necessarily that he's going to be healthy, but like a Yuri Perez or somebody like a young pitcher that, maybe got the job and like, oh, he's off to a hot start. Make those moves. And if you aren't sure, once again, join us on Subtext. We answer all questions on there. You can ask us, hey, should I drop X guy for X guy? We'll give you those details there. We do waiver wire episodes twice a week in season, so make sure you check those out as well. We'll make sure you have those names on there too. But there's a middle ground between being passive and aggressive, and you want to kind of stay there, cut the guys at the end of your roster that you really didn't put much capital into, invest in those breakouts, and you don't necessarily have to be tied to them either. But like building that solid core of a team the way Matt did here you're gonna find a lot of success. And just hang in there. Maybe a guy or 2 gets hurt. You're not looking so great. Hang in there with your core. Like I said, those 4 hitters that Matt had, Riley, Tatis, Alvarez, and Teoscar, with the 4 starting pitchers of Ragans, Castillo, Bibee, and Glasnow. You want to hang in there with those guys for at least the first couple of months and let that core do their thing. And then you kind of just put the pieces around them to be successful.
Yeah. Well said. And, I'll be honest, like even looking at this team, if I would have walked into a draft, my bench, I'm not clingy. I'm not cling to, right? I'm not going to hold on to anybody probably, but CES and Evan Carter. Everybody else is expendable. I hate 5 benches, but this is a Yahoo standard, so that's what I'm going to pretty much do. Normally, I like to play with like 8 to 9 bench slots, so you have a little bit more depth. The draft goes a little bit deeper. I'm able to get a couple more pitchers on my bench, because otherwise, I hate carrying 3 bats, but you always know that somebody takes a poop in the first 2 weeks, and you need to move on. That's why I'm not attached. Like there's a world in a way where I'm dropping Kerry Carpenter after the first week and a half. I haven't ranked as my OF 33, but there might be this thing where I have to move on.com where CES takes off and Evan Carter, I don't need him. And my whole team's rocking and rolling. And if he's
Tyler O'Neill gets hot.
Yeah. And that's all you need. So, I'm pretty much ready to dip out on any of these guys at this point. And I think I've done it. I've done, you just don't get attached to anybody. Is really what it is. But yeah, guys, so this is where our final notes. I'm going to leave you on this and we're going to move on. We're going to get out of here, but try to draft this, take risks, but, mitigate them and always have a backup plan and construct your team well. But guys, please like, subscribe, comment, rate, and review. Do you have anything to share the show? Quite honestly, we love doing it. We're going to get you those championships this year. Stay tuned with us all year long. Because again, you don't win your league at the draft, but you damn sure can lose it. The way you win it is staying with us all season long. And when you're done, check out our boy Sully for some real MLB coverage and find out what's going on around spring training in the league. With that, peace out, guys.
See ya.